Okay, today's daf, Be'ezus Hashem, is Daf Sanhedrin Daf Nun Zayin, 57. And we're going to just start from the Nun Vav Amud Beis, about 2 lines from the bottom. And what I'm going to bring up over here is what I'm going to tell you is like this, that just so it's very clear what the Gemara is discussing. The Gemara is discussing over here regarding, we know that Gili Arayas, Znus, is also for a goy, right? But what defines Znus? For a Jew, for example, a Jew is not allowed to live with his wife when she's a Nida, right? A Jew is not allowed to live with his wife when she's a Nida. So the question is, can a goy live with his wife when she's a Nida? Obviously, certainly, yes. Hi, Lewis, we just began. We're just on Nun Vav Amud Beis, 2 lines from the Nun Zayin Amud Beis, 2 lines from the bottom. So I'm just reviewing what the point is. What is the point of my question is, what is the general rule of thumb to what makes Gili Arayas also for a goy? I mean, what defines Znus by a goy? By a Jew, the Torah tells you what defines Znus. You're not allowed to live with your sister, and you're not allowed to live with your mother-in-law or stepmother, right? But for a goy, a Yid is not allowed to live with his wife when she's a Nida. But for a goy, a Nida is permitted. So what is the rule of thumb? So the Gemara has brought Rabbi Meir, and Rabbi Meir said, we're going to just point it out over here on the screen. Rabbi Meir said that the general rule of thumb is kol erva, my pointer, kol erva shebezdin Yisrael mimsin alel. If the Jew would get the death penalty on it, beinoyach musar alel. Then a goy is, of course, will also get the death penalty. Ein bezdin Yisrael mimsin aleha. If the Jew will not get the death penalty, ein ben noyach musar alel. Then for a ben noyach, it would be permitted. Divrei Meir. So let me give you an example. A Jew is not allowed to live with his sister. With his sister, you won't get misa. If you do znus with your sister, it's only kores. God takes care of it. So a ben noyach, that's not included in the Gili Arayas of the Sheva Meis of Ben Noyach. That will not be included, and ben noyach is permitted with his sister. Let's say you're somebody's Ashes Ish, of course, a married woman. So for a married woman, a Yid would get the death penalty. So a Ben Noyach, of course, cannot live with somebody else's somebody else's wife. So that's the rule of thumb, Rab Meir said. So now there is another opinion of the Chachamim, and this is going to be another opinion, that it really has nothing to do with the death penalty. It has nothing to do with the death penalty. So what does it have to do with? It has to do with a goy cannot live with somebody who's a blood relative from his mother's side. That's the rule of thumb. So, for example, according to this, a goy would get the death penalty for sleeping with a sister if they share the common mother, because they have the same genes. However, a goy, according to this opinion, a goy will be permitted to live with his stepmother. In other words, after his father dies, even though a Yid living with his stepmother would get the death penalty, according to this opinion, a goy living with his stepmother would be permitted because she's not a blood relative. And same thing with a mother-in-law. A mother-in-law for a Yid, even if his father-in-law died, she's not an Ashes. Of course, a Yid cannot marry his mother-in-law. However, a goy, according to this opinion, since they're not blood relatives, they don't share common genes, therefore a ben noyach would not be aser. So the Gemara is just going to say that Rab Meir said, no, the rule of thumb is if a Jew would get the death penalty, it would be aser for a guy. So now 2 lines from the bottom, I'm going to go very fast. The Savar Rab Meir would hold, kol erva shebezdin shel Yisrael mimisin alel, ben noyach musar alel. If every type of aroyas that the Jew would get the death penalty, a ben noyach would be aser. Is that the rule of thumb? For Tanya, we learned in the Brisa, ger, We learned in a brisa a ger. Now, the funny thing about a ger is that a ger that's born, a ger that becomes a convert, it's as if he has no relatives and he's like he was brand new born again. He's a born again person. Technically, according to that, he could marry his mother because, Gershon is, if his mother became a ger and he became a ger, he could technically marry his mother because they're just like born from different families, and he can marry his sister, and he can marry his daughter. But once you become a ger and everybody around you becomes a ger, we want you to keep what was usher to you when you were a guy. The same issa should apply when you're a yid. So it doesn't look like you became a Jew in order to have to marry your mother. So we want to make sure to maintain that. So midrabanan they say that a ger should not be with a sister or anything like that. So let's see like this. By the time we learned to the brisa, ger shaisa roisha shlai b'kedusha v'leidasa b'kedusha yesh le she'er ha'em v'ein le she'er av. So here, this brisa seems to say that he should maintain not marrying and not having relations with anybody who's a blood relative from his mother's side, similar to what he was usher to when he was a guy. Okay, tzad, the Brisa says like this: Nosa achoyse bin ha'em, if he was over gili arayas by marrying his sister from his mother. Let's say he is a ger, and he decides now to marry his sister from his mother, because Gershon is Gayer, he's like a brand new person. And if his sister became a Gioris, so let them marry. But since they're blood relatives, so Yoitzi, they should get a divorce, because this would be also to him if he was a guy. So now that he's a Jew, we're not going to say that you're permitted to marry your sister. Min ha'av yikayim. Achois av min ha'em yoitzi min ha'av yikayim. Achois ha'em min ha'em yoitzi. Achois ha'em min ha'av. Rab Meir oime yoitzi v'chachama yikayim. Shahoya Rab Meir oime. This is the key point I'm trying to bring out. Rab Meir said, in this brisa, Rab Meir is going to say, the rule of thumb is kol she'erva shehi mishe'er aim. Any arayas that is a blood relative from your mother, for example, your sister from your mother, or your mother's sister, right? So then that is also for a guy. And therefore, when you become a yid, and they to become a yid, yoitzi, you have to give her a divorce, because we want you to maintain what was also to you when you were a guy. It should stay the same when you become a yid. So we see from here that Rab Meir is giving a totally different rule of thumb. In the previous brisa, Rab Meir's rule of thumb is that if a Jew would get the death penalty, then a guy is usher, which implies that if he would a guy would marry his sister, that would be permitted, because a Jew marrying his sister, doing znus with his sister, he would not get the death penalty. So a guy, he would only get kares. So a guy doing it with his sister would be permitted. But here, Rab Meir clearly says that a guy is not allowed to marry his sister. And all the other arayas are mutter for a guy and mutter for this ger. This includes here right away. Even it includes his stepmother. You see, a stepmother would be permitted to a guy. A guy is allowed to marry his father's wife if his father died, right? He's allowed to marry his stepmother. Now, this is not what Rab Meir said before. Rab Meir said before that if a yid would get the death penalty, then a guy is not allowed to have relations with that woman. A yid would get the death penalty if he's mezana with his eishes aviv, his stepmother. So therefore, according to that rule of thumb, if that is the rule, then a guy would not be allowed to marry eishes aviv. And in this brisa, Rab Meir says a guy could marry his eishes aviv. Now, this is just another cleanup point. Nase isha bita. A man, when he was a guy, married a woman and his daughter. He shouldn't have done it, but he married a woman and his daughter. So when he becomes a ger, koines achas moitzi achas. He shouldn't do this. But if he just married his mother and a daughter, he should get rid of one of them and just remain with the other after he became a ger. Meise ishta. If his wife died, mutter b'chamoisai. If this ger is mutter with his mother-in-law, a yid is never mutter with his mother-in-law. because there's a death penalty. But according to this brisa, since the mother-in-law is not blood related, it's permitted. So the question is, what is the opinion of Rabbi Meir? And that's the question. So what's the rule of thumb? Amar Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda said, like kasha ha Rabbi Meir aliba de Rabbi Lezer, for Rabbi Meir aliba de Rabbi Akiva. The Tanya we learned in the Brisa. This Rabbi Meir learned by two Rebbeim, Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Akiva. So this Brisa that we learned that the rule of thumb is a blood relative. That's Rabbi Meir stating this opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. And the first Brisa, which says the rule of thumb is the death penalty for a Jew, that's what becomes usher for a guy. That's Rabbi Meir according to Rabbi Akiva. The Tanya we learned in the Brisa. Let's call up the pasuk. In the screen it says, Al kein yazov ish es aviv ves imai. The Torah says that a person should leave his father and mother, v'davak be'ishtoi, and marry and connect with a wife, v'hoyel basar echad, and they become like one. So the Gemara is going to say this pasuk, this entire pasuk teaches you the whole concept of Gilei Arayos, what's also for a guy to have znus with. So the Torah is telling you that a man, a guy, or whatever, the first man should leave his father. What does that mean? You should leave your father. Were you ever married to your father? So it could mean that don't have homosexual relations with your father. That's usher. So that's possible, but that we'll learn from the other pasuk. Homosexuality is usher to a guy because the Torah tells you v'davak b'ishtoi. He has to connect with a wife, not with a man. Adam has to marry Eve, not Steve. But so then, what does aviv mean? What's usher for a guy to do? According to one opinion, as aviv means he's not allowed to marry his stepmother. That's what it means. Or according to another opinion, it means you're not allowed to es achois aviv. You're not allowed to marry. The Torah is telling you he's supposed to leave the sister of his father. So let's see what this is all about. The Tanya we learned in the Brisa. Al kein yazev ish as aviv es imai. That the Torah tells you that a man should leave his father and mother. Rabbi Lezer says aviv means achois aviv. Aviv means that he's not allowed to have relations. The Torah is telling you a goy is not allowed to have relations with the sister of his father. Imai teaches you you're not allowed to have relations with the achois imai, the sister of your mother. This achois aviv means if both the father and his sister share a common mother, they're not allowed to have relations. And achois imai, the sister of his mother, is asa. So the key point over here is if you share genetics. So Rabbi Lezer seems to say that the rule of thumb for a guy, what makes asa for a guy is the Gilei Arayos, that if you share a common blood, if you share a common genetics, then you become asa to that person. Rabbi Akiva, not true. Aviv is marba eishes aviv. Eishes aviv means the wife of your father, your stepmother. That's asa to a guy. Well, you're not blood related. So it must be that Rabbi Akiva has a different rule. Since it's death penalty for a yid, that's why it becomes asa for a guy. Imai means the Torah is telling you he has to leave his mother, imai mamish. V'davak v'loy b'zachar. You have to look at Rashi over here, but Rashi says that you connect with. So the Torah tells you that he is supposed to connect with a female, not with a male. So that asses a ben noyach on mishkav zachar, because davak means you connect, and both sides have hanoah, have enjoyment. And when you connect with a zachar, only one has enjoyment, the other doesn't. That's what it says v'davak. That's what Rashi says. The Ishtoi teaches you that he has to connect with his own wife. He's not allowed to do znus with his wife, his friend's wife. The Hoyel Basar Echad teaches you that bestiality is usher for a guy because you can't become one with an animal. So this pasuk over here, the famous pasuk, an innocent pasuk, seems to teaches you all the types of arayas and the rule of thumb of arayas that a goy will be usher for. So we're going to run through this. Amamar, Reb Lezer, Ima Aviv, Achos Aviv, Im Ema Aviv Mamish. Maybe it means that how do you know Yaakov he shall leave his father means he's not allowed to marry his father's sister? Maybe it means he's not allowed to have relations with his father. And the Torah is teaching you Mishkav Zacha from there. So the Gemara says, Hainu v'davak v'lei b'zacha. We already know that from v'davak, not min zacha. So Eime Eishes Aviv, maybe it means is like the other man the Yama. Rabbi Kiva said it means his stepmother. Hainu be'ishtoi v'lei b'eishes chavera. If your stepmother is married to your father, then you're not allowed to have relations with that woman. But Eimel Achamisa, maybe after your father died, you're allowed to, the Torah is telling you that would be Aser. Dumya de imay. So Rabbi Lezer says it has to be similar to your mother. Ma imay de lav ishus, av avav de lav ivish. Just like the mother part of the pasuk refers to nothing to do with marriage. Av avav, when the Torah is answering you a arayis is asking the guy an arayis from his father, it has nothing to do with marriage. It has nothing to do with marriage. So it must be a blood relative of the father. So what's that? Achois aviv. The father's sister. That's what the Torah is telling you. Imai, achais imai. Says the Gemara, Amy ima mamish. Maybe that means your mother. But that's your mother is married to your father, so that's a married woman. Maybe you can marry. Maybe the Torah is telling you a chiddush that the Ben Noach is not allowed to marry his mother after his father died. And says the Gemara, that can't be pshat in the pasuk. Dum yida aviv, ma aviv de lav mamish, af imay mid lav mamish. Just like we just explained that the pasuk that says you have to leave your father means your father's sister. So as imay doesn't mean that you're not your mother. It means teaching you achois imay, your mother's sister, because they're both not to be taken literal. The Torah is telling you that a guy is not allowed to marry his father's sister nor his mother's sister. That is the opinion of Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Kiva says Aviv means Eishes Aviv. When the Torah is telling you that a guy is not allowed to marry his father, it means he's not allowed to marry the wife of his father, his stepmother. The Ema Aviv Babish, maybe it means that he's not allowed to marry his father. Hainu v'davak v'lei b'zacha. But of course, that we have another pasuk that teaches you Mishkav Zachar is Aser. So that you can't be with your father. So what does it mean you can't be with your father? It means your wife of your father, your stepfather, your stepmother. Maybe you can marry according to Rabbi Akiva, let's see what the pasuk means. Al ken yazav ishus aviv means you should leave your father, means you're not allowed, a guy is not allowed to marry his stepmother. Ves imay means he's not allowed to marry his mother, doesn't mean his mother's sister. That's permitted. What it means is he's not allowed to marry his mother, who is not his father's wife. Which means, how's that possible? If Goyish's father raped somebody and he was born, so the Torah is telling you that he's not allowed to marry his mother, even though it's not his father's wife. So again, B'mai Kami Palgi, what are they arguing? We go on the Amid Beis. Rabbi Lezer says, when if the father, and when the Torah says Aviv in the pasuk and Imay in the pasuk, it's referring to blood relatives of the father, blood relatives of the mother. Rabbi Kiva says, Nutev la'ikme ve'eshes Aviv yikri erves Aviv lapuke chais Aviv t'sher Aviv yikri erves Aviv lo yikri. I'd rather say that erves Aviv means your wife's father, not your father's sister, because the wife of your father, not the father's sister, because that is called the heir of it. The Torah would say al kein yaziv she'er of it, but wouldn't say ervas of it when the Torah is referring to somebody who is an erva to your father. That's usually referring to your stepmother. Okay. So bottom line is that what is Rabbi Akiva? What does Rabbi Lezer hold? Rabbi Lezer holds a person's not allowed to marry his father's sister and his mother's sister, right? He's not allowed to marry his aunt. And Rabbi Akiva holds that you're not allowed to marry a guy is not allowed to marry his stepmother, and of course he's not allowed to marry his own mother, even if it's not his father's wife. Tashma, come in here, and we're going to come in here. The pasuk says, "Vayikach Amram es Yecheved Daidasei." Amram took Yecheved, his aunt. Now, Amram was before Matan Torah, so he has a din of a goy. So why did he marry his aunt? Aunt was also for a ben noyach. My love, doesn't this mean he married his aunt, his mother's sister, his mother's I mean so his mother's sister. So he married his aunt, and that according to Rabbi Eliezer would be aser because Imai teaches you a choisimai. So how would Abraham do such a thing to have Moshe Rabbeinu? And says the Gemara, loy doidasai min av. It means his aunt from his father's side, which means that his father had a sister with not the same mother. They had Amram's father Kahas had a sister Yocheved, but Amram's father Kahas did not share the same mother as Yocheved, and that is permitted. Toshma, come in here. Bagam omna ba'chaisi bas avihi achloi basefi michlal b'chal the basa ei masura. So Avram Avinu told Avimelech that this Sarah is my sister. We share that we share the common father, but not the common mother. So we see michlal the basa ei masura. From this implies that Avram Avinu was justifying how could he marry his sister to Avimelech, Sarah. Because if we're only sisters from the same fathers, it's mashma that sisters from the same mother would be aser. A brother and sister from the same mother would be aser. This is against Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva says that the key point is the death penalty. A sister would be permitted. So how did Avram Avinu? How come it implies from the pasuk that your sister if you share a common mother would be aser? Would you say that Sarah was his sister? They were cousins. Of course, it was mutter to Avram Avinu. Like this is what Avram meant to say to Avimelech. I'm related to this lady, Me'aba from my father's side, but Me'imam not from my mother's side. But she's not really my sister. Achoisi doesn't mean she's my sister. He was telling you we're related. We're first cousins. Toshma, come in here. Why shouldn't a person marry his own daughter? Why didn't Adam? I'm saying Adam Arishan marry his own daughter when he couldn't have kids. Why didn't he after maybe Cain killed Hevel? Or why didn't he have more kids by marrying his own daughter? Answers the Gemara, because he wanted Cain to have his sister. So Adam did not take his own daughter for a wife. But if it wasn't for this reason, Asura, this would be Asur. So we see a person marrying his daughter is only Asur Kares. And therefore, this pasuk is mashma, only Adam didn't marry his daughter, but a regular Ben Noach is Asur to marry his daughter, even though this Kares. So this is a question against Rabbi Kiva. Answers the Gemara, Kiva the Ishtri. Since this was permitted, since Adam Arishan did not marry, since it's Chaim, Cain married his sister. So since Cain married his own sister, so therefore, once Cain married his own sister, every Ben Noach is permitted to marry his own sister. Amar Rav Huna, let's start a new inyan. Goy mutter bevitay. A goy is mutter to marry his own daughter. V'im toima m'nai man lo yinosim Adam espitay. Why didn't the Adam marry his own daughter? Kadesh yisa Cain as a chayse, because Cain should be able to marry his own sister. So Adam Arishan did not want to marry his own daughter, leaving Cain without anybody to marry. Mishum oilam chesed yibane. V'ikadamri, others say Rav Huna said the opposite. Goy also bebitay. A goy is not permitted to marry his daughter. Teida shalei nasa Adam es bitay. V'loihi hasamay mitagdei sheyusa Cain as a chaysim shem einam chesed yibane. New Gemara. Amar Rav Chizda. Rav Chizda said, Eved muter be'imoy. An Eved Kanaini is muter to his mother. Now, a goy is not allowed to marry his mother, but an Eved Kanaini could marry a mother. Umuter bibitay, and he can marry his own daughter, because because a goy is also to marry his own daughter, maybe according to some opinions, and a goy is not allowed to marry his mother. And this Evet Kanani is permitted to marry his mother and permitted to marry his daughter because an Evet Kanani is somewhere in between. He's not a goy, but he's not a Jew yet. So he's somewhere in between. So he's permitted to marry his own daughter and he's permitted to marry his own mother. He also Ravdimi Ben Noyach. You have a boss, an employer, right? A goyish employer. He said that this maid should go to my slave. The maid and the slave did not get married. And then and then the boss, the master, was mazana with the shivcha prior to them becoming married husband and wife. Neregaleha, he that you will kill the master. Why? Because not because he's doing znus, it's because he's stealing something that belongs to his Eved. His Eved really should get the Shifcha, and now he's stealing it by doing Znus. We're always of the opinion that stealing by a goy means you're stealing something of money value. But here, Rab Chanina told us this in the Chiddush, that if a Ben Noyach dedicated a certain Shifcha to his slave, he said, this Shifcha is going to be for my slave, and then he's Mazana with that Shifcha, he would get the death penalty because he's stealing from his slave. Me'emas, when does it become designated for his slave? Amar Rav Nachman in the Korile Revisa de Planya. When everybody is saying, oh, this girl is going to this slave. If it's in the street already, then it's really dedicated for the slave. So the master should not be doing sleeping with the shivcha. When does it become undone? If she's no more wearing a kerchief in the street, means the shivcha is like absolving the relationship with the eved, and she's now walking the street alone. Then the master has a right to mizana with her because it's not anymore belonging to the eved. Rab Lazar said, Rab Chanina, Ben Noyach shaba al ishtoi shaloi kedarka chayiv. A Ben Noyach that has nus with his wife through the back, and that's not the normal way. He's gets misa. Shnema v'dovak v'lo shabadarka. The Torah tells you that a Ben Noyach, a guy, should have relations with his wife only the normal way, not the unnormal way. Amar Rava said, Mi kamidid Yisrael lo mechayev, a goy mechayev. Then it comes out, a yid is allowed to have bia shaloi kedarka with his wife. And a goy is not allowed to? A goy will get the death penalty for that? Ela Amar Rava clarified this. Ben Noyach shabo aleishes chavera. A Ben Noyach that committed adultery with the wife of his friend. Shaloi kedarka. He did it in an unnormal fashion. Potter. Whereas a Jew who does nus with the wife of his friend in shaloi kedarka, he would be chayav. My timer, the Torah says that Ben Noyach should only be with his own wife, not his friend's wife. V'davak, and he should connect with his wife, v'loy shaloi kedarka, not in the unnormal way. So Rava explained that if a goy wants to be mizana with his friend's wife, and he does it in the unnatural way, then he will not get the death penalty. 2 more minutes, and then we'll stop. Amar Rab Chanina. Rab Chanina said, Goy shehikes Yisrael. Look at this. A goy that whacks a Jewish person, Chayiv Misa, gets the death penalty. I don't know, it's not part of the Shiva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach, but he's going to get the death penalty. Shenema, because we see Moshe Rabbeinu, Vayichem koi v'koi, v'yar kenish, v'yachas mitzri. Moshe Rabbeinu killed the Egyptian because that Egyptian hit another Jew. So we see a guy that hits a Jew is Chayiv Misa. What basis did Moshe have the right to kill him? I'm not sure. The Amar Rab Chanina said, "Asoite loya shel Yisrael, soite loya shel Shechina." If someone slaps the cheek of a Jew, it's as if he slapped the cheek of the Shechina. You hit another Jew, it's as if you're hitting God's presence. Shnema, moikesh adam. You do something to a Jewish person who's called an adam. Yola. Kodesh, it's as if you're doing something, slapping, so to speak, Kodesh, the Holy One. Zokti Gemara, Amr Shlakish. 2 more lines and we'll stop. Amr Shlakish took it even further. Hamagbiya Yodai al Chaver. Someone lifts his hand against his friend to hit him. Afal Pishla Hiko, even if you didn't hit him, Nikra Rasha, you're called a Rasha. Shenema, the Yom La Rasha, Lama Sakare Acha. When Moshe Rabbeinu saw one Jew lifting his hand to another person, he already called him a Rasha. Lama he kisu. He didn't ask the other Jew, Dasan, why did you hit him? El Lama Saka, why are you trying to strike your friend? Afal Pishla Yiko, even though he did not hit his friend, it was Nikra Rasha, it was called a Rasha in Moshe Rabbeinu's eye. So we see that just lifting your hand against your friend, even if you didn't hit him, you're called a Rasha. Two more lines. Amar Abzira, Amar Abchanina. Nikra Chayti, you're called a great sinner. Shinema, Vimloy Lakachti Bechaska, Uksiv, Ati Chatesh Hanurim Godayla Ma'oid. So they took things with strength, and it's called, the Tanakh calls it Chatas Neurim. If you big sins, that if you're just trying to show with your fist power, that's a big sin. Rav Huna amat kikotzis yadai. Someone lifts his hand against his friend, we cut his hand off. Shnema uzroya rama. If you lift your hand, tishaveh, you'll be broken. And the Gemara says Rav Huna katz yadal. Unbelievable. Rav Huna had his own bezdin, and he brought somebody to trial who was lifting his hand against his friend. And Rav Huna paskin, we should cut the hand off. Rabbi Lazar said that the only way to deal with somebody who lifts his hand against somebody else is to kill him, bury him. And finally, the Amar Rabbi Lazar said, real estate is only for somebody who has a little bit of strength. He stands up for himself. If a person could stand up for himself, to him belongs the real estate. It's a hard business because everybody's trying to take it from you. The Amar Rosh Lakish says, if you're going to work the land, then you'll be full. When you have property and you're a slave to it, then you'll have what to eat. If you just have a property and just let it run, you're not going to be full with bread. So a couple of advice about dealing with chaverim, and a couple of advice about the real estate. Okay, we'll stop over here. Good Shabbat.